Hey everybody, it's Party Elite, and it's time to take a look at all the great city building, management, and sim games coming over the course of the year. As always, I'll have two videos to kick the year off. This one featuring city builders, sim, and management games, with another that I released earlier this month and linked in the pinned comment below, focused on 4X, real-time strategy, and turn-based tactics games instead. Keep in mind that if you see something you like in this video, a great way to support the developers is to wishlist the game on Steam. This makes a huge difference, especially for indie developers, because of how visibility works on the platform, and it's an easy way to stay up to date with the game too. If you enjoy this video, consider hitting the like button, and let me know if you found something particularly interesting in the comments. There are timestamps down below to skip around if you'd like, as always, and if you want to keep up with the games I showcase in the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Now, before we begin, I do want to quickly mention that outside of this channel, I am affiliated with the publisher Hooded Horse. This affiliation is not a sponsorship, and I'm not paid to talk about their games in my videos or anything like that, but I like mentioning this anytime I'm going to cover their games in a video, just in the interest of transparency. You can learn more about this affiliation in the video I've linked in the description below, but ultimately, the reason I started working with the folks at Hooded Horse was because they were scooping up my most anticipated games on a regular basis, and I continue to help them pick out games as well, so it only makes sense that some of their games will show up on my channel and in videos like this from time to time. Anyway, with all that said, and with no more time to waste, let's begin. Space Engineers 2 is an outlier in this list, releasing, in a way, on the 27th of January, bringing its first vertical slice to people nice and early, giving access to the sandbox creative mode specifically, in an alpha state. Now, I wouldn't normally include a game releasing into an alpha state of its vertical slice in a list like this, and none of the other games I've included in this video are like that, but if you haven't played the first game, for many, this vertical slice is the bread and butter of the game, allowing you to build all manner of impressive structures and spacecraft using a voxel building system. The game will add for free over time a selection of gameplay elements ranging from the exploration of planets and survival, like in the previous game, to planetary scale water that introduces the need for boats, submarines, and construction across oceans, lakes, and rivers. There'll eventually be multiplayer, NPCs, a whole story-driven campaign, all built on an overhauled engine. Again, I wouldn't normally count this as a release, but given how much fun I've had with the first game, especially just creatively building using its extremely powerful tools and systems, I want to at least put this on people's radars. Foundation is releasing into 1.0 on January 31st after a fairly long stint in early access, and you may have seen me cover the game previously or recommend it repeatedly across multiple sales over the years. Now that it's headed into 1.0, I can once again wholeheartedly recommend this charming medieval city builder for anybody looking for something that explores some fresh ideas and does a good job while doing so. There's been quite the overhaul in a few ways. Not only have the visuals seen an upgrade, but a bunch of mechanics have become more and more fleshed out over the course of early access, of course, and if you skipped out on it back then, I highly recommend coming back to it for 1.0 after all these years. The biggest selling points to me have always been the organic way in which cities are laid out, asking you to focus more on zoning areas and plopping down the occasional building, then leaving your citizens to carve out their own paths through desire lines, asking you to then adapt to those in the pursuit of optimization as you get more production chains up and running, fulfill the needs of your people, and pursue quests assigned to you by a few different groups of people, each with their own typical sets of needs. You'll do everything from bake bread to raise an army that you'll send to fight off-map battles with, and you'll collect taxes and build massive monuments, and these will give you an opportunity to build in a very modular way instead of the more organic form the rest of the game takes, where you can place individual pieces and snap them together or apart to end up with something truly custom, which will provide functionalities and require construction materials based on the decisions you made. The 1.0 demo is well worth checking out as well, even if you already own the EA version of the game, as it'll give you a peek at what's coming at the end of January. I'm really excited to see this finally get its full release, and you should definitely keep an eye on it. Hollywood Animal is slated for release on the 27th of February, releasing just a few weeks later than initially planned, with a brand new demo that was made available around Christmas. If you haven't checked it out and you're a fan of tycoon games and the film world in particular, you should absolutely dive in as soon as you get a chance. It'll go through the history of cinema, inventing cutting-edge technology for all aspects of the business, from film cameras to sound stages to production and distribution. Interestingly, you'll actually engage with all of these in a very granular way too, building your own marketing and distribution departments, finding room for them on your studio lot, and then planning exactly when your marketing campaigns will kick off, how long they'll last, and how expensive they'll be, before planning then your distribution campaign, picking out the number of theaters you're going to target, worrying about the associated cost to produce that many copies of the film, trying to figure out how long your theater run is actually going to last, so on and so forth. It's quite an intricate relationship of considerations on your plate. If you're more interested in writing your own scripts, you can do so too, plotting out key beats, picking out key roles, and hiring and assigning actors, writers, directors, editors, and even scouting out locations or opting to record on sound stages in your lot instead, needing to plan production schedules around the availability of your staff and space alike. But that's not all. What makes Hollywood Animal particularly stand out is in how it deals with, well, drama. This is Hollywood, and behind all that glitz and glam is the disgusting, seedy underbelly of an institution held up by blackmail, fraud, adultery, and favors. This game does not shy away from those elements, and from time to time, you'll need to dig up dirt on your staff to keep them in line through blackmail, or you'll have the opportunity to sabotage rival companies' productions, or, well, you get the picture. There's some shady stuff going on here, some of which I can't even mention in a video for fear of getting demonetized. I'm not exaggerating. Seriously, some of the examples I saw in the older demo at least felt a little gratuitous even, but it wasn't unrealistic in its portrayal of Hollywood's darker side. There have been many attempts at making a good spiritual successor to the movies by Lionhead Studios back in the day, and none have managed to strike gold yet. Hollywood Animal is quite clearly trying to strike out on its own path, and between that and everything I've seen so far, I'm very excited for this one. Kaiserpunk is slated for the 27th of February, blending city building with a strategic layer in a way I've never seen done before. Set in an alternate timeline where World War I continues beyond its actual end date, you find yourself building a city-state of your own from the ruins of the ongoing war, training and fielding troops to defend your home and expand its influence around the world, and push back against a variety of enemies. You'll keep an eye on troop fatigue, movement, replenishment, terrain modifiers, and other classic map game strategic considerations, and what's more, the world map is truly global, splitting it into 100 regions with benefits that are all worth fighting over if you're able to sustain the military capabilities and maintain regional stability to keep newcomers growing your city and prevent rebellions from brewing. With the city building side of things, you're laying out your town, establishing a variety of production chains to meet a variety of needs, trading for those that you can't acquire locally, and managing a few different levels of citizens, each with different abilities to perform different tasks. But even within that familiar framework, Kaiserpunk is exploring some very unique elements. The devastation caused by war is ever present, and you'll spend a lot of your time scavenging and needing to clear up space impacted by the war. Beyond that, armies are only available to you if you can actually build army bases of various designations and supply them with the equipment needed, manufacturing that equipment with raw materials processed through complex production chains with the help of skilled labor and factories that you have built and put up. Otherwise, the logistics systems have trucks that slowly move goods between buildings, blended with a level of automation if buildings that rely on each other are placed close together. Easier said than done for the more complex production chains, where beyond the military side I mentioned previously, you're looking at food and water and power and construction material, but you're also considering more interesting goods like newspapers as a luxury product, something you can't make without wood, a cellulose factory, a paper mill, a printing press, and, of course, power. There's similarly complex chains in producing clothes or supporting services like record labels and jazz clubs that keep morale up, with distilleries, hospitals, prisons, and universities providing for additional high-level needs across your population. You are a whole city-state after all, not just a military outfit. As you upgrade your technology over time, you'll unlock around 100 different resources, and having seen the kinds of products and byproducts on the table, I find myself very excited by Kaiserpunk. I'm looking forward to learning more about it on the lead-up to launch this February. 2 Point Museum will be releasing on the 4th of March, taking the comedic management series to a new frontier in museum management. Unsurprisingly, given the typical approach of the 2 Point series, the museums you're put in charge of aren't of your standard collections of artifacts, instead asking you to manage the curation and display of man-eating plants, prehistoric modern gadgets, and bones of all kinds of never-before-seen beasts, as well as dinosaurs, of course. You can't do this without dinosaurs. You'll send people out on expeditions to go find new artifacts, bring them back, and put them on display for guests to admire, decorating the spaces around them, keeping them in good condition with the help of your staff, and even building custom tours led by charismatic tour guides. Everything we've seen so far looks like the perfect amount of wacky, including hauntings, restoration, and guests being eaten by exhibits, but the 2-point standard always includes a great deal of serious management aspects too. Setting prices, managing and training staff, ensuring people have access to basic needs like food and drink. Interestingly enough, this is the first time the 2-point series has you managing a fun destination. Hospitals and campuses, while they can be fun in some ways, are certainly more about providing a specific kind of service, while a museum is about making sure your guests are having a fun time above all. Beyond all the conservation work and stuff that goes on in the background, obviously. I'm not discounting any of that, but I'm not sure if 2-point Museum is going to focus on those elements. Anyway, I wonder how this approach and the subject matter will impact some of the management elements, and I'm confident that whatever it means, it'll be handled well by the developers. I'm very much looking forward to this one in March. High Seas, High Profits is aiming for a Q1 2025 launch, promising you the opportunity to live the life of a medieval trader. The blend of city building and trade-centric gameplay and themes makes this almost feel like a spiritual successor to Port Royal, and that's an exciting prospect to begin with. The city building aspects focus purely on establishing businesses that either produce the goods that people want or produce the materials needed to produce said goods. You'll manage production rates, keep an eye on prices, and maintain the needs of people at a very granular level across multiple strata of society, all while building ships, staffing them up, and having them travel from city to city, presumably in order to acquire goods as needed elsewhere and help your trade empire grow. I'm really curious to learn more about this game. There isn't too much on display, and though there's currently an ongoing alpha, I'm hoping the developer returns to their regular dev diary posts so we can see how things are coming along. This game has a lot of potential based on what we've seen, and I'm really excited to see it come together. Abbey is slated for release in Q1 of 2025, and this is actually one that I've been keeping an eye on for years now, first on IndieDB before it even had a Steam page, and I'm very excited to see it trucking along. I'm a big fan of management tycoon type games, especially ones that ask you to make your own products to sell, especially if that includes any kind of recipe creation process. Mix that with this charming art style and a fun product as the focal point, and you've got an excellent foundation to build off of. Like many games in the genre, it looks like you'll be starting with a small outfit and a tiny production facility in the form of an abbey, slowly growing it and adding more rooms to it to gain access to more options, more storage space, more ingredients, and more throughput for your growing business, while also operating as an abbey. Abbey seems to take the recipe process rather seriously as well, asking you to consider everything from ingredients to mash temperatures to aging options, but it doesn't ignore standard management elements by getting too caught up in any kind of gimmick, asking you to manage your staff's moods and needs while dealing with orders from lords, friendships with other abbeys, and even bandits. Abbey looks absolutely charming, and I can't wait to give it a try. City Tales Medieval Era is slated for release sometime in 2025, and this is another organic city builder tossing aside the grid to create a system that feels more fitting for the medieval setting the game takes place in. While it features much of what you'd expect from a city builder, managing resources, establishing production chains, and meeting your citizens' needs, the standout elements include what sounds like a companion-driven set of narratives that lead you down different paths depending on what stories you pursue, and of course the aforementioned organic city building approach, being done here in a way that even other organic city builders haven't done yet, with you laying out districts that then get populated by your people, similar to zones in a game like City Skylines, but then the paths between the buildings within and between districts are generated entirely through your people's pathfinding, similar here to Foundation. The visuals have a beautiful and colorful charm to them, and the screenshots on the store page show everything from hovels to taverns to churches and even castles. There are some fun ideas on display here, and I'm very excited to check it out. They say a demo is coming soon, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's in the February Next Fest perhaps. Either way, I'm very excited. Anno 117 Pax Romana is looking to release sometime in 2025, and it's bringing us a new entry in the Anno series of city builders, this time going even further back in time to the Roman Empire. What we've seen so far is absolutely stunning as far as visuals are concerned, and There are some interesting mechanics being discussed in the dev diaries too, talking about what the core of an Anno game is, what strategic pursuits the devs have with the setting, and so on and so forth. Playing in this setting, you'll be building cities for one of the most iconic empires in human history, known for its ingenuity in civil engineering and for the sheer scale of its empire that resulted in the need for expansive trade networks, including by sea. This all blends wonderfully with Anno's city-building core, with layers of economic simulation, large-scale strategic elements, and narrative aspects too. Naturally, the game will deal with a historical setting, but as always, the devs are going to be using history as inspiration as opposed to a hard set of rules to adhere to. So, for example, there are two regions that you'll work between. Latium, a forgotten province that was once wiped by volcanic activity, now being rebuilt as a former gem of the Empire, and Albion, which is just Albion, but geographically modified to better suit Anno's gameplay systems, but maintaining certain real elements like keeping the Celts in-game, with a focus on the Romanization of this distant province. It feels like this will work similarly to the Old World and the New World in Anno 1800, and if the logistics management and adventures between the two is the same as in that predecessor, this will result in some great narrative moments, as well as the need for hiring specific characters and building specific ships capable of carrying cargo across great distances and fending off attackers of various kinds alike. We've already seen some planned production chains in these dev diaries too, and it looks like these will remain suitably complex for an Anno game, but also take into account this process of Romanization, clearly a core element of this game. When Tier 1 Celts have all their needs met, they can upgrade into Tier 2 citizens, while either sticking to their Celtic roots or changing to follow more Roman ways. This will impact their future needs, as well as their future capabilities and output, and this feels ripe for some very interesting considerations when it comes to managing production chains and your economy as a whole, especially across two distant provinces. I could talk at length about what we already know, but I'll perhaps save that for a follow-up video instead. Don't hesitate to subscribe to get a notification when that releases, or when I get the game in my hands to cover it on the channel. I'm definitely looking forward to this one. Nova Roma is slated to release sometime in 2025, bringing yet another Roman-themed city builder into the mix, this one from the creators of Kingdoms and Castles. Set in an alternate timeline where you're leading a group of people who've left the decadence of the Roman Empire behind, you establish yourself on massive, resource-rich islands and face off against the forces of nature and the gods alike. Establish laws and policies, appease the gods to gain boons, develop new technologies, and meet the complex and growing needs of your people, from food to pottery to wine and entertainment, as you manage production chains across massive tracts of lands and navigate fully simulated water systems that tap into one of the marvels of Roman engineering. Build towering aqueducts and dams to control the flow of water, keeping an eye on gravity and its ability to help or hinder your projects. Beware floods and particularly heavy rainfalls, adjusting the height of your dams and modifying your spillways as needed to keep things under control. Manage irrigation and beautification with the help of your works, providing water for luxuries and needs alike, but be careful not to accidentally flood your city or anger the gods and have them break down your infrastructure. From Breton games to divine intervention, Nova Roma takes a more lighthearted and fantastical approach to the era, but doesn't take city building and management any less seriously, introducing interesting concepts like mixed-use structures alongside a fully dynamic fluid simulation that reacts to terraforming, construction, and dynamic weather, all on gorgeous, procedurally generated island maps. I'm very excited for this one. Spacecraft is slated for release sometime in 2025 after having been revealed just last month during the PC Gaming Show in December. While that initial trailer certainly piqued my curiosity, turns out there's more than first meets the eye here. Set in the far future after much of humanity was destroyed by an awakened alien empire, the game is set in a distant, uncharted galaxy to which the survivors escaped, inviting players to explore a massive universe in their faster-than-light capable ship, seeking out and exploiting the abundant natural resources across a multitude of planets, and then asking them to build manufacturing capabilities and production chains with the help of automation systems that allow them to craft everything from housing to the tools needed for the aforementioned automation of resource acquisition and logistical elements, to additional ships for the purpose of hauling cargo, mining, and even combat. The entire universe will have a living economy, evolving with player actions as this MMO-adjacent game invites players to trade goods and services, share blueprints, or otherwise engage in missions and contracts. That's right, this game can be played completely online with other human players, if you'd like, though you can also play it completely solo with your market and factories still being active and impacted by the persistent online universe even when you're not actively playing. It's an interesting approach to a game that blends Satisfactory, Eve, and Space Engineers. I'm excited to get hands-on with this one when the time finally comes. Whiskerwood is coming in 2025, and underneath its cute and cuddly veneer featuring adorable mice settling a vibrant and colorful new world lies a complex colony management game full of all kinds of intricate production chains, automation systems, and simulations, with a narrative core that introduces even more unique elements in the animal city builder subgenre. Your mice are here under the thumb of their cat overlords, establishing colonies for the purpose of fulfilling their ever-increasing demands, paying a hefty tax for the privilege of working in the interests of these feline masters. Doing well by the cats sees you rewarded, gaining access to various luxuries and policies that you can use to further the productivity of your colony, but when push comes to shove, will you keep bending the knee for a distant master, or will you start to prioritize your mouse folk, working with the local rebels and pirate factions to acquire what you need instead, drawing the ire of the cats in response? As this complex political intrigue plays out, you'll also find yourself engaging with what you might expect from a colony management game. Acquire resources to build various structures, process resources to get more advanced goods, fulfill the needs and wants of your citizens, each of whom have their own traits and belong to different guilds that make them better suited for one task or worse suited for another, and make sure that everything is kept in working order as you do so. Establishing the movement of goods between islands is an interesting challenge, but before you're even looking at that, you'll need to consider how to manage logistics within a single island. Automation systems such as conveyor belts and slides and lifts work wonders as you navigate the mountainous terrain, but powering these systems requires more and more complex technologies that you'll need to research, and the pitfalls of industrialization are very much modeled here as well, with pollution and its dangers simulated across the map, asking you to worry about your citizens' health as you work to meet growing demands. Mine out entire islands with the voxel-based system allowing you to terraform and break down mountains, farm based on the soil and humidity of a specific tile, tending to everything from wheat to mushrooms, and plan out what you want to build above ground versus what you'd rather have protected underneath it, with caves providing some degree of natural protection against the elements. Fight the vagaries of nature, tackle winter storms and summer droughts, and make sure your colony is happy and healthy, but also productive. As each day passes, all while the cats continue to ask more and more of you. Whiskerwood is looking absolutely fantastic with some really great innovative ideas, an awesome level of simulation, a touch of automation, and a compelling backdrop. I'm really looking forward to showing more of this one off when the time comes. Aethus is looking to release sometime in 2025, and I'm extremely curious about this isometric, story-driven survival crafting game set on an alien, resource-rich planet where you've purchased a plot of land after humanity has escaped a dying Earth to build an outpost, gather resources, and make profits in service of a giant corporation that's filled the power vacuum left behind by squabbling governments. A dystopian corporate conspiracy sits, waiting to be unraveled, so under all the management and construction and mining and automation, there's some deep, dark secret to uncover. The combination of these elements is what has me most intrigued here, on top of the beautiful stylized visuals, the voice acting and writing, and perhaps most importantly to me when it comes to the genre, the streamlining of the most painful aspects of these kinds of games. My little time with the demo very quickly showed me that the game doesn't ask you to, for example, click on a tree 50 times so you can acquire 3 pieces of timber with which you can build half a staircase, instead making the process of acquiring resources much more fluid, allowing you to get to the good parts that much faster. Building complex structures, customizing your spaces, building resource processing facilities, and investigating a light degree of automation in your outpost too. You'll explore abandoned facilities, you'll seek opportunities to improve your capabilities, and you'll participate in the market to gain access to more structures and facilities for your own use too. Games like these are all about the variety of options at your fingertips, so I'm quite curious to see what more is to come. And like I said earlier, in the particular case of Aethus, I'm not intrigued only by the core gameplay loop and mechanics, but also by the narrative backdrop of it all. I'm very curious about this one. Junxions is coming sometime in 2025, and this is a very intriguing and in-depth simulation game focusing on one of the most interesting aspects of city building: traffic. I've never seen a game with such advanced traffic and intersection modeling tools. It makes me think of some of the more detailed traffic management mods in City Skylines and then pumps them full of roids. Apart from challenge maps that require you to maintain a steady flow of traffic from start and end points, you'll also be able to import maps from anywhere in the world to see if you can't improve the traffic situation in the area, managing everything from pedestrians to bikes to trams and buses and cars and building bridges and tunnels and all kinds of intersections. While there are automated systems and algorithms in place for the most basic circumstances, you can take literally any intersection and break it down into its constituent parts and modify them, deciding what lanes are connected to what other lanes, if there are lights with details on how and when they flip on and off and for which lanes, and heck, you can even determine where vehicles need to actually stop on a lane when the light flips red for them. The level of control here is truly wild, and every intersection you see in the trailer can be manually crafted in-game. These aren't just for show. When you're placing roads down, you'll have access to pre-existing templates, sure, but you can go in and customize these templates, prioritizing things as you wish to make the junctions of your dreams, not only for function, but aesthetics too. Place crosswalks and islands and decorative elements, remove pedestrian walkways, prioritize bikes over cars, focus on public transit, do what you need to succeed in the challenges, or do what you want to make your utopia across massive sandbox and real-world maps. If you're even remotely interested in this aspect of city builders, this is absolutely worth putting on your radar for when it releases later this year. Super Fantasy Kingdom will be releasing sometime in 2025, and if you haven't had a chance to check the demo out, you should absolutely take it for a spin to really understand what all the fuss is about. It's the kind of game that seems quite simple at first glance, but then very quickly becomes extremely addictive. A roguelike city builder / auto battler, Super Fantasy Kingdom is unlike any other game I've played in the genre, asking players to pick from vastly different fantastical kingdoms with unique mechanics between them, and then setting them loose on their respective maps to build and defend said kingdom against ceaseless enemies. Each kingdom has unique resources, units, and production chains, but there are a few core mechanics common between them. For one, each map begins with just the player's city and the region immediately outside of it visible. Within the player's city are a handful of predetermined building slots of multiple sizes, with procedural generation determining exactly where resources are laid out, meaning multiple runs will be optimized with slightly different uses of these predetermined building slots. You won't always put a mine down in the same spot, for example, and since more complex production chains involve moving goods between multiple buildings, you'll often need to pick and choose which chain takes a hit for the benefit of another. So, while predetermined slots will often simplify a game, here it's used to add another layer of strategy instead. But what you see at first isn't everything that's available to you. With the use of resources and glory gained with successfully survived nights, you'll be able to unlock additional building slots within your kingdom and explore the map beyond your kingdom too, seeking out additional warriors to recruit or other sources of support in nearby villages and points of interest. What's more, these unlocks are persistent. This is a roguelike game after all, so that means meta progression is an essential element, and here, apart from being able to upgrade your selected hero for future runs, you'll also be able to start future runs with more building slots or pre-explored points of interest on the map, fundamentally evolving and changing your strategy completely as you build and acquire resources during the day to fight off the hordes at night. Place your warriors in optimal positions up front, make sure they're fed at the tavern at night to level them up and strengthen them for future fights, and unlock more slots to place more warriors on the front line too, building catapults and trebuchets to help them as they take on a huge variety of enemies that get unlocked over time, each with their own attack patterns and abilities. Super Fantasy Kingdom blends quite a few different ideas together expertly to create an addictive game loop that keeps you coming back, convincing you that you can get just a bit further with just one more run, and just one more run, and just one more run. I'm really excited for this one to come out later this year. There are a few more games I'd like to highlight, even though they're not currently listed as coming out in 2025. I think they're highly likely to release at some point later this year still, and either way, I think they're definitely worth putting on your radar at this point in time if you enjoy these kinds of games. Starminer, based on how much there is to see out there right now and how polished it's all looking, might actually see its release some point this year. Starting with a single ship, from what I can tell, you'll find yourself building up an entire fleet of mining vessels, seeking out valuable minerals across asteroid fields to sell for profit or use to upgrade your ships and grow your fleet. Your actions will inevitably draw the attention of aliens who wish to stop you, and so you'll find yourself needing to research advanced technologies and implement defensive capabilities to keep your fleet operational and safe. A huge degree of customization with a modular building system, Newtonian physics-based simulations, and maneuvering for that hard sci-fi feel, with an absolutely gorgeous art style, all make Starminer a very exciting prospect for 2025. I'm looking forward to trying this one out for sure. Lands of Koastalia says its release date is to be announced, and I've been following it since before it even had a Steam page, just a few posts on the developer's Twitter account. It has a beautiful aesthetic and a very intriguing construction system that is unlike anything I've ever seen before, blending in some ways the zoning tools from games like City Skylines with a ploppable approach, leading to some interesting layouts and considerations. It looks like the dev wants to be able to make a game that can be approached either as a cozy city builder or as one with more rigorous resource management and production chain considerations. Either way, this is a charming one, and I'm looking forward to learning more. Historicity Florence is listed as coming soon, with a playable demo that suggests its release might be right around the corner. Set shortly after the end of the Black Plague, you're tasked with rebuilding the city of Florence. The distinct art style goes hand in hand with its distinct setting, asking you to stay on top of Renaissance-era technological advancements while balancing faith, economy, and complex production chains, all while taking on a mission-based approach to city building, harkening back to the classics like Caesar and Pharaoh and Zeus from back in the day. I'm really curious to see how Historicity Florence comes together. Starhome puts you in charge of a fleet on the run and asks you to travel the galaxy in search of a new home after your old one was destroyed by some malevolent forces. You'll meet friends and foe alike on your journey through the stars, managing production chains, housing, and defensive capabilities on limited spaces aboard your ships, slowly advancing your capabilities to survive in space against all kinds of challenges. I'm curious to learn more about Starhome, and I'll certainly be keeping an eye on it. Let's Build a Dungeon seems like an absolutely insane undertaking, putting you in charge of managing your own game studio that's in charge of building an MMO, and then allowing you to actually build and play that MMO within the game as well. The demo showcased how players will be responsible for building out the maps and dungeons in this MMO that they're in charge of by picking out specific archetypes that they want to explore, choosing quests from within that archetype to build out for their players, and then placing the associated buildings and NPCs for said quests, accumulating more and more over time to build out a full-fledged MMO where they can have players come through and leave their thoughts. And all this while, again, managing your own game studio too, hiring staff and making sure you're making profits and so on and so forth. I'm extremely curious about how all this comes together, and the demo certainly has me intrigued. Let's Build a Dungeon seems, again, like a massive undertaking, but it looks like it's coming together very nicely. Can't wait to learn more. Prison Architect 2 was, yes, indefinitely delayed, but I still hold on to hope that we'll see it at some point in 2025. Completely revisiting the look and feel of the first Prison Architect, the premise is just such a strong one that I can't wait to dive back into. Here's hoping we hear some good news soon, because I'm very excited to take it out for a spin. See anything you like? Make sure you go and wishlist it on Steam, and don't hesitate to leave a like on this video to help spread the word on these games too. For more exciting strategic and tactical games coming out in 2025, check out the video linked on screen right now. But otherwise, as always, a massive thanks goes out to all of the channel members and patrons who've been supporting the channel on a monthly basis. Y'all keep us alive and running smoothly. And of course, a big old thanks goes out to each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, cheers.